Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Fintech Effect podcast. I'm Sue Britton. I'm CEO and founder of Firefly Growth. Today, I don't have a guest, but I want to talk about innovation. And I've been spending a lot of time on the topic of innovation lately with one of my clients. And also, frankly, trying to sort through, the three some odd decades of, learning that I've had about innovation inside of big companies. And I thought since this week, I'm not launching a podcast that actually has a guest to profile, that I would share some of my learnings. And I have what I call the 10 critical success factors for having a successful corporate innovation program. And I thought I would go through them, and maybe, on those weeks where we don't have a guest, I can give you some of my perspective on some of those key success factors, critical success factors. So I'm going to start with the first one, and it's probably the one I consider to be the most important, and frankly, a controversial topic when I first started my entrepreneurial career. As I was controversial because as I was sitting in a group of people who were, sort of trying to decide what their next, job was going to look like. So, AKA, we had all left our companies, left our positions, and, got that package where, you get to spend some time with a transition consultant. Anyway, there's a bunch of us sitting in a room. They were all CIOs. There's another version of this story that I tell that led to me getting my first tattoo, but that's a separate issue. But there was some disagreement around sort of, my view on this. And so what I will say is, I believe very strongly that this is a key thing. So, and what it is having a CEO and board who are fully behind the corporate innovation initiative, and in whatever shape or form that takes. So that could be, if you're at the stage where innovation is new, it might be a small investment, a team, an initiative, and so on. You can't become you can't take an incumbent, a big traditional company, and make it innovative overnight. And so what you need to start somewhere. And so whether it's that, or whether it's, someone like the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, who, has been at it for several years, and you can, give that a Google search and see a number of people who've interviewed him on the topic. Where, now it's actually more, this is a stage of maturity of innovation, and now it's about fine tuning and focus. But I don't think you can make innovation work inside a big company without CEO and board level support. And so I'm just going to kind of dig into that a little bit. What do I mean by support? So I mean that the CEO has to make it not optional for the rest of the executive team to actually participate. And I'll give you one experience that I had, and it was in my last corporate job, where the CEO was pretty adamant actually about investing in innovation to try and drive some organic new product ideas in the market. Great initiative. He had a leadership team that was spread across Canada and the United States. Some of that leadership team came through acquisition. And we worked on a whole bunch of really interesting projects with some big names. Those are the kinds of projects that, frankly, I think of as the highlights of my career, because they were with clients who were super engaged in helping to define, that next sort of iteration of a product that we were already offering, because we all knew it was going to go away. And I'll protect the client and the actual initiative, so as to not inadvertently create any issues for anybody. But what I would say is that this particular situation, the reason why it continues to sort of firmly entrench the view in my mind that CEO level endorsement and requiring the entire executive team to be supportive is because we got through probably about 9 months of iterating on, the problem we were trying to solve and the customer pains and needs and, the jobs to be done and all of that great stuff. We probably didn't actually do all the steps as well as I think, we could have for a variety of reasons, but we did all that. And then we ended up in the end with a recommendation to the executive leadership team for approval, to launch this product in market. And it was turned down. And the reason it was turned down was because the decision was left not to the CEO, but to an EVP who, had other objectives. Let's put it that way. And part of those objectives was an earnout. He came through an acquisition. He was needing to hit certain targets in order for him to achieve whatever, incentives were put in front of him. And this would have created risk to that. And so while it was the right thing for the company, the right thing for the client, the right thing, just all around, without the CEO removing that roadblock, which I'm sure there would have been ways to do, right? Maybe, protect that executive from impacts that would maybe be caused directly by, launching that new product in a case where that may impact their results. So anyway, hopefully you get my gist of what I'm saying here is, and I think that a lot of people probably would, this would resonate with, is that, you've got a great initiative, it's what customers want, that it has a business case for it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't get approved. And oftentimes that, whether it's the, sort of executive team reporting into the CEO, or the CEO themselves, or the board, those are really, ultimately the key, factors, I think, in determining the success or failure of innovation. Another example of that is, oftentimes corporate innovation will, you'll have someone that's leading it. You can call it whatever you want, transformation, whatever. I like to think of innovation as, it's a very polarizing word, but it is really describing, not doing things as you've always done them, doing them in a different way, working in a different way, shifting your view to not the product that you have, but the product that the customers want. And yes, I'm focusing primarily on product innovation in my, sort of realm of experience. But often what happens is, everyone gets a certain piece of the pie, right? A budget. And I think another complaint, we'll talk about this as a separate initiative around corporate innovation, a separate critical success factor, which is the funding of innovation. But I'll use it as an example of where, this CEO leadership and support for innovation has to actually lead, through tough times when, and even today, I mean, I just before recording this, I saw another note about another bank in Canada letting go some employees. And so it's tough times. Like, there's no question that, you have to trim budgets and reduce costs and things like that. The reality is that innovation costs money. You can't get around that. It's not about going out and actually, saying to your sales team, go sell this idea first and then we'll fund it. Actually, that's how I started my career, basically, is, basically selling a dream and then coming back and saying, okay, the customer's going to go for it, so let's do it. And that works in certain cases. That was a big enterprise technology company. But, back to sort of the world that I'm referring to, which is, financial institutions like credit unions and banks and insurance companies and wealth management companies and all those big solution providers that support them, who have all been around for long enough to have entrenched processes and likely shareholders who expect a certain return. And so what happens in tough times is you end up looking for places to cut. And unfortunately, innovation is often considered one of those places because it's there's no, super clear payback on every single dollar. It takes time to actually deliver benefits from innovation, and expecting that you're going to launch, you're going to take one idea and you're going to launch it to market and it's going to be a huge success is absolutely ridiculous. So it takes time to build the capability, to actually build the portfolio full of interesting and viable ideas that customers want, all of that good stuff. But when times are tough, you need a CEO who's actually going to protect innovation. It's the worst time to take money away from innovation because, tough times are going to mean that you're going to really have to do things differently, not just cut funding and cut people, but actually think about, how do I reduce my costs going forward? Because this may actually not get better anytime soon. And innovation is a great way to do that. So, I again have a example from my experience where, we started off with a $7 million corporate innovation budget. And over the course of 3 years, it was 1 million. And you could be thinking to yourself as I'm saying this, yeah, well, maybe that's because the leader of that innovation group, which let's just say for argument's sake it was me, that I failed to deliver. And so the reduction in the budget had more to do with me than it did with the CEO. And I guess I would just say, I'd like you to just sort of assume that that wasn't the case. I do believe that 98% of the time when innovation is considered a failure, it's actually not about innovation or about the resources or about, the approach or the ideas. It's more about this thing called culture and people and human behavior that often, sort of is where innovation suffers its death, takes its last breaths. So that's another example where, a CEO has to step in and say, you know what, like I'm quite sure that if I think of all the, examples that jump right to the top of my mind about, where we haven't seen anyone walk away from, at least on the surface it looks this way anyway, but like RBC, for instance, with their ventures and RBCX, which is what it's now called, tons of examples in Europe, because that's ultimately, where a lot of early innovation has happened with, banks and credit unions and others who have not given up on, the investment in, a deliberate focus on innovation. So a couple of scenarios where hopefully, it rings true and might give you some, perspective on why it's so important. And so there's, I think, so what I covered was, the leadership team that reports into the CEO not really having an option to participate. So that's one. The CEO making sure to preserve the ability for innovation to be successful. So that's two. Ultimately, if it's going to be anything of, consequence, at some stage, you're going to have to invest money without, your traditional payback. That would be another scenario where you really need the CEO, especially if it has to be taken to the board. So again, CEOs has to really fight for that, and they're the only ones that can. That's the buck stops, essentially. Some other scenarios might be, providing that sort of positive, inspirational, to basically be the lead change agent for the organization, to have everybody believe in the investment in innovation. That's another thing that, I really don't think, it absolutely has to be bottom up and top down, but if you don't have the top down, it just makes it, so much more difficult to achieve. So that's, hopefully that's where, I'm sure I could talk about lots of other things, but I just wanted to come on and, share some things with you that hopefully you would find helpful. And like I said, I have, these 10 sort of, things that I think are really critical to making innovation a success inside an organization. Happy to, if you want to reach out, by all means, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or any other platform that we're on, and be happy to share more with you. But what I'll do is, maybe for the times, as I said at the beginning of this, that I don't have, a guest this week, I'll share, some of the others with you, to give you some hints. I touched on one already, but one of the other 9 is actually having a very specific budget for innovation. And so I'll talk more about that. The other is communication, is making sure to actually communicate internally very clearly about what you're doing. And I'll talk about why that's important. So there's a couple more, but yeah, if anyone who's listening to this is interested in joining me to talk about any one of these, I would be more than happy to see if that's a fit. But definitely would like it to be a conversation with folks that have the experience, and maybe can share some examples to help others who struggle with this. But anyway, I think, my takeaway for you is you're not alone. If you're feeling frustrated that, your organization's efforts towards, innovation is not set up correctly, then you're probably right. And you probably need to, maybe look at some of those critical success factors and figure out which ones are the ones you need to focus on, and develop a plan of action to try and mitigate them. I would go as far as to say, if I was working for an organization that did not have the CEO willing to play this role, that I wouldn't take on innovation. It would be futile. So, so anyway, hopefully that's all helpful to everybody, and I enjoyed sharing that with you. Haven't done this before, so I'm absolutely interested in all feedback. You can share it publicly or you can share it privately, but thanks for listening, and I look forward to sharing the next episode of the FinTech Effect with you all. Thanks very much.